Alonzo Tullo Lucas. He was born in Graves County. And he married Molly Davison, I believe. And I never knew too much about my father's ancestors. I did know my grandmother, who lived to be way up in her 90s. On the Lucas side, my grandfather Kenny, on my mother's side, lived to be 92 years old.
The longevity then sort of runs in the family.
It looks like it, yes. Well, now my brothers, I lost two of them. One at about 31, the other one about 55. And then I lost my sister at 60. And she lived in California. We were scattered pretty well over the United States, the three of us were. And I married Hal Fahn's daughter, and when she was 20 and I was 25. I lived out in the country for some time, and then we moved to Benton. And I got a job. My first job I got was Deputy United States Marshal, and that was during the 1922 strike on the railroad. And I stayed there for approximately 6 months, maybe a little longer. And of course, but naturally being a Deputy United States Marshal, I was also a railroad detective, or classified as a detective, because I carried a pass for 20 people. In other words, if I run into a riot or something, I could handle a bunch. I could get them all in one car and take them out of wherever they might be and stop the trouble. Well, after that, and I got a job with the United States government as a Border Patrol inspector. Went down in Jacksonville, Florida, and then over to Tampa, Florida. And I stayed there for a while. Of course, money wasn't very big salaries for anything then, and I couldn't keep two homes going, so I quit that job and come back home. And then after that, I was police here in Benton. There was two of us, two chiefs, one night chief, one day chief. And we were, I don't know, quite a long time. And then I was a deputy sheriff under Lewis Lilly, and then I was deputy sheriff under Sam Myers, and then I guess I was in business. Between these times, I'd go back into the used furniture business, and I guess I sold half the people in Marshall County at that time some kind of item, one kind of another, in furniture. And it was a pleasure to do that, and sometimes you'd run into some old couple, and one especially two old women that was living here in Marshall County out here at Dogtown. And a friend of mine come in and told me that one of the old women was awful heavy, couldn't hardly get up and get down. She had a chair that she couldn't get in and get out very easily. And I had quite a few big old plush chairs that at that time wouldn't bring very much, but now would bring a pretty tolerable good price. I just sent the old lady one, and she was very proud of it.
Yeah, I should think so.
And I don't know why. I went to Detroit, worked up there a while. I was in and out of the furniture business, used furniture business all my life, ever since I started out. I'd get in, get tired, and get out and get to do something and go back in again.
Yes.
And I don't know much of anything else. Mr. Mofield, without, if you have some questions you'd like that steer me on something. At my age, you don't just recall everything right fast.
Well, you've
But you
been
can
talking.
live over a lot of them.
Yes, sir. You've been talking so rapidly and smoothly there, and I was so interested I just let you go. But we jumped over your school career. Do you remember did you go to a one-room school?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I went to school here. It was more than a one-room school. Now, I don't think that you remember or could remember Tom Brown. He was a professor at school here, and he was a rough son of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to school upstairs to Miss Pace from Hardin, where I'm sure that you knew her.
Yes.
And she's Everett's sister, Everett Pace's sister,
Mm-hmm.
and Damon Pace's sister. And I was a little fella at that time, and we played football up there. Now, we didn't play football like we play football today. We'd choose up about 40 or 50 to the side and put a football and kick it. We didn't pick it up and throw it.
Mm-hmm.
We just kicked it. And shins, we just all had shins where we'd kick each other. We wore Brogan shoes at that time. And I'm sure you don't know what a Brogan shoe is, but it's a very heavy shoe like the Army uses.
Uh-huh.
And some of them had brass toes on them even. And it was a whole lot of fun. And one time, coming down the stairway there in the schoolhouse, while we had, just as you start at the top of the stairs, why, the banisters is on there. Well, I never walked down those steps. When I hit that banister, I slid down. And I slid down one day right in the hands of Tom Brown. And when I did, he got me by the hair and called me a little insignificant mutt and shook me, and he like scared me to death. And I went to school to Miss Llewell Acre, and to one time George Long's wife, she was Trinitrice at that time, and I assumed she was probably 18 or 20 years old, but she was teaching as a substitute teacher for some reason or other. And we had a spelling class. Of course, I was always at the foot of the spelling class. So they give out the word file. And I was at the end of the class, and holding my hand, just raising all kinds of cane to get her to give me the word. And she finally got down to me. She said, "Well, Homer, you want to spell file so bad, go ahead." I said, C-I-L-E, file. And that woman hollered, you could have heard her a half a mile. She said, T-Rex, sit down. That was one of the main things I reckon I'll never forget, how to spell file. C-I-L-E, file.
Oh, that is wonderful. That's a great story. All right, you finished school then, and you were living in town. What did your dad do? He wasn't a...
My dad and mother were separated when I was a very small child. My mother was a widow woman. And the Bell Telephone Company come in here. I don't know exactly when it was, but it was before Haley's Comet, because I was up in the Bell Telephone office and saw Haley's Comet.
That was 1915, wasn't it, I think?
I believe it was back behind that. It might have been, I don't remember just when it was. But anyhow, that was a very awesome looking thing. And my mother worked there for $13 a month, and there was 13 telephones at that time, and the telephone rent was 50 cents a month. And now there was an opposition telephone company here called the Home Telephone Company, and was, I guess, owned by the people that owned the phones. And some lines would have as high as 8 people on the line, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very nice about giving you, if you had an emergency, they'd give you the line right quick and help you and do anything they could for you. And Wilbur John was one of the managers. The man that we call Bar White that was a manager at one time. And I heard Bar White say one time he had no more education than I had, but he said it's one thing that he did know. Whenever you worked up there and didn't make enough money to eat on, you wasn't doing any good. And if you made money to eat on, you better hold your job.
Mm-hmm.
And I expected about what for that time.
Yes, sir.
And at that time, why, I knew many people around here worked on the railroad 10 hours a day, $1 a day, 10 cents an hour. And they worked hard, and they kept their families going and raised big families.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, $1 won't get you across the street now.
No.
And,
The price level has changed an awful lot.
or the little nigga said a whole heap.
Yeah. Yes. Well, all right. I believe you told me a while ago you married when you were 25.
25.
So
And we had, I married Al Fawn's daughter.
would you tell us something about your children?
I had 3 children, and my wife died after 10 years married life. We had 3 children, and 2 of them died in infancy, 16 months old and 33 months old. And the other one lived, Betty Carolyn, and she's here now. Lives next door to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remarried, and we had 2 children, Ronald Lucas and Hannah Ann Lucas. Ronald is a interior decorator, and Hannah Ann is a registered nurse.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any grandchildren?
No grandchildren.
No grandchildren.
I have some step-grandchildren. I have 2. I'm sorry, I do have 2 grandchildren. I have Lucky Gene Knowles as my grandson, and he's a mechanic. And Lisa Knowles, my granddaughter, and she is a respiratory therapist at Lourdes Hospital.
Mm-hmm. So she's near enough she can visit you.
Oh yeah, they come out and see me all the time. And my grandson, he's really an expert on motorcycle engines. I believe he could take one down and put it back together blindfolded.
Yeah.
He started out, he just grew up. His daddy was a mechanic too, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an engineer, and he still is an engineer on the high-speed railroad. Of course, that's been changed over there in Paducah, the name of the railroad. I don't know what it is now.
Well, it's about the same. Illinois Central Gulf, I think.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
When they merged with Gulf Mobile and Ohio, they added
Yeah.
the word Gulf to it.
That's right.
Most of us still call it IC.
Oh, well, always will.
Yeah. I surely hated to see them take up the tracks here on the L&N through Benton.
Well, I was sorry of that too, but for the last 10, 12 years, why, no trains come through here except freight trains.
Well,
We had no passenger service. And I understand it by some company bought the railroad from Murray to Hardin, some grain company. And of course I know you know all about that. And I think I saw a piece in the paper where they said it was a profitable investment, which I'm very proud of.
well, I'm glad to see that. Jack Dunnigan and bought that and so on. Now, were you ever in service?
Oh yeah, I was overseas for around 18 or 20 months, something like that. Made a sergeant.
Tell us where you trained.
Well, when I joined the Army, I was sent to Fort Thomas, and I stayed there till I got my inoculation shots, which was 3 weeks. You got shot every week, once a week. Well, they sent me to San Antonio, Texas, and to Aviation Instruction Center there. I joined the Aviation Corps. And when I got down there, they didn't have any of my papers where I took the shots, and they gave me the shots all over again.
Oh, me.
And the first thing, any man that's ever been in the Army, when you get those shots, you know it, because I don't think they ever changed the needles. All they done is just wash it off. And they must have been big as a lead pencil from the way they felt, because they sure hurt. And they made you sick, those shots did. Well, after I left San Antonio, why, then they sent us to Garden City, Long Island.
Was that what they call Randolph Field?
Or you mean San Antonio?
In San Antonio.
No, that's Kelly Field.
Kelly Field, yeah, okay.
They sent us to, this place was, I'm getting a little ahead of my story. Before they made up squadrons there at Kelly Field, and there was 2 of us left there, the 2 boys, and I guess it was 100 tents there. And so about 3 o'clock one morning, why, there's a bunch come in there, and they were from Yaphank, New York, and they were, a lot of them were Jews, and they were all nice people, but we had some officers there that was raising Cain, wanting to know where the commander of the camp was. Well, we didn't have no commander of the camp. They'd all done gone.
Mm-hmm.
Just the 2 boys, me and another fellow from Indiana was there. I looked over at him. I said, "Don't you think we'd better get out here and make sergeants right quick?" And he said, "Yes, and go to jail?" I said, "No, we'll try it anyhow." So I walked out there, and I told him, I said, "I'm sergeant." Called my name, and I said, "We're in charge of the camp here." He said, "Well, place these men." So we just got bid in, placed these men, put them in the tents, and of course we knew how to do that. We'd had experience before. Along about 3 or 4 days later, they called me in there and said, "I thought you said you was a sergeant." I said, I reckon I am." He said, "Where's your stripes?" I said, "They didn't give them to me." And he said, "Your papers don't show that you're a sergeant." And I said, "Well, I don't know what happened to it." He said, "Well, the only thing I can do is just let it go." So I didn't get in any trouble on the thing. Well, then they shipped us to New York and Long Island, to a camp up there, and we come through Benton, through Marshall County, McCracken County, through Paducah. The troop train did, and there's I guess it was 15 or 20 cars of troops that come through and went up there. We stayed there a few days, and of course it was raining. It was in the winter time, and we had to get out of the tent city because the water had flooded the tents where there's about 2 foot of water in the tents, and it froze. And they moved us into barracks. And then right away then they shipped us overseas. And I guess this is something I'm probably not too proud of, but just before I got into the Army, I joined the Navy. Well, I was in the Navy about 6 months, and it was pretty raw going. The treatment wasn't the best in the world. I mean, they was rough as a cob on you there.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I didn't like it.
Was that Great Lakes, Illinois?
No, that was Norfolk, Virginia.
Yes, sir.
And so I enlisted in the Navy in Louisville. And so they sent us out to on a monitor ship, service ship and we were down in the Gulf of Mexico all the time. We didn't have any fights or any trouble at all there. And so I got tired of that, and I decided that wasn't for me. So when we come back and landed then in Norfolk, Virginia, I had a leave coming up, and I took it, and I'm on that same leave. But I come right on down to Lexington, Kentucky. My father and mother, as I told you first, had separated. He had remarried and lived in Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
And I went over there, stayed a few days, and I had a terrible time with the vaccination. And I decided I had better do something about that, so I went over and joined the Army in the same building that I joined the Navy in. I thought, well, if I'm going to get called, I better get it here. Well, of course, with all the people running through, they didn't know anything about it. And I changed my name, called myself Rodney Kenny. And so that's when they sent me down to Kellyfield, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And all this happened after that. Well, they sent Joe Darnell was sheriff here, and they sent word to Joe Darnell that I deserted. Well, Joe Darnell knew that I didn't desert, and he, through my mother had told him this story, what had happened. So he didn't pay any attention to him. He told him he was looking for him, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Joe Darnell was a good friend of mine to start with. I don't know, I presume you remember him. That's Paul Darnell's daddy.
Yes, sir. I've heard my dad speak of him a lot.
Yeah, well, he was banker here. And then he was sheriff. And so that went by all right. So when we got to France, while I was in the Navy, though, they interned a ship that was called the Kaiser Wilhelm II. And that was in Norfolk or Hampton Roads, Virginia. And when I joined the Army and they shipped us overseas, they had changed this to the Agamemnon, the name of that ship.
Yes.
And I sailed on that doggone ship, same ship that I helped clean up. Now that's a very peculiar thing. Little crazy things that happen in your life.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember too well about the dates, but the big thing was on Friday. We left here on Friday. We landed in France on the 13th. We left France on Friday, on the 13th, and come back and landed in the United States on Friday. And on Friday the 13th, 1918, I was discharged. From now on with an honorable discharge as a sergeant.
Well, that is a remarkable story.
It is. It don't seem right. I mean, to me, it's just something that happened. That's all there is to it.
In later years, did you serve as judge here in Benton?
I am still a judge.
Still serving?
I'm,
Tell us when you first began.
well, that's 11 years ago. I spoke to Chewing Gum Charlie, our chief of police, and told him I'd like to be a dispatcher. And if he needed one, I'd retired from McKinney Appliance over here, and where I managed that store. And so Charlie saw me and asked me, said, Homer said, you want to be a dispatcher? Come on to work in the morning and stay there with a lady there and learn the ropes. Well, that was after Christmas. New Year's Day, why, he called me and says, you on for work today? Now, I didn't know too much about it, but I done the best I could. I guess I made a pretty good operator because I stayed there 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike Miller was running for judge, and Frank Stubblefield was a good friend of mine. I don't know whether he had his hand in anything or not to help me, but Mike come over there one day and asked me, said, he'd had 2 judges, pro tems, at that time, and both of them died with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he asked me, would I like to be a county judge pro tem? I told him yes, I would. And then this coming December, that will be 7 years that I've been county judge pro tem. That is, the name has been changed, and it's Deputy County Judge Executive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing now.
Yes, sir.
Now then, my time up there is not too much, but I work every Saturday morning from 8 till 12 o'clock, and then from on the first and third Tuesdays, we have fiscal court, and I sit in on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the job that I have now, and what I'm still doing.
Yes. Well, very good. You know, this half hour has sort of floated along pretty fast. I
You mean
wonder.
we've had a half hour here? I've been talking that long?
Yes, sir. Almost. I was wondering if there's anything special you'd like to put on, something you'd like to say before we are forced to sign off. We still got a minute and a half or so.
Well, I don't know of anything, Mr. Mofield. I've sat here and the little boy said just run off at the mouth and told you all the...
You said you knew my dad.
Yeah, I did. And he was a wonderful man. I bought a stove from him over there, and I think that at the time I bought that stove, he said he had to see, he told me, he said, well, I got to see Ray, he may want this stove. It was a warm morning stove, and then a day or two after that, why, he saw me and said, Homer, Ray don't want stove, so come up there and get it.
Uh-huh.
And I bought that stove for $15 at that time from him, and they were selling new for around better than $100, and the stove was almost as good as new, but he didn't need it. The house was vacant.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother was gone,
Yes, sir.
and he was living there by himself. But then he had moved. I don't know where he lived at that time, but no one was living in that house at your home
Yes, sir.
at that time.
Well, I certainly thank you. It's been a real pleasure to me, and I appreciate your allowing me to come by. I've been interviewing today, this is Ray Mofield talking, Homer Lucas of 1407 Poplar in Benton, who's had a very interesting career and is 87 years old. He is now a judge, and he's been in the armed forces, and he's been to Texas, and he's been to France and a lot of other places. So we appreciate the opportunity of coming by. This oral history project is presented by WCBL, and we return you now to our studios.